Rain lashed the sidewalk as people bustled past, ignoring the hunched figure beneath the awning. His name was Eli Dawson, once a name spoken with respect in culinary circles. Now, he was just another homeless man invisible to the world, clutching a faded photo of a little girl and a water-stained notebook full of recipes no one would ever read. Just blocks away stood the Golden Fork, a 5-star culinary temple where the wealthy came to indulge and be seen. Its head chef, Julian Mercier, was as famous for his ruthless perfectionism as he was for his extravagant truffle-stuffed menus. He looked down on anyone who hadn't earned their place or hadn't kept it. Eli hadn't eaten in 2 days. The gnawing pain in his gut and the storm in his soul pushed him to do something desperate. Clutching his tattered coat, he stepped through the towering glass doors of the Golden Fork. The maitre d's eyes widened in horror. Gasps followed. The scent of decay and street sweat clashed with saffron and caviar. Before Eli could speak, Julian burst from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. "What is this filth doing in my restaurant?" he barked. Phones rose. Laughter rippled. Eli met Julian's eyes. "I just want a warm meal. I'll clean dishes, anything." Julian sneered. "You'll leave. That's what you'll do." Security dragged him out. The door slammed. Unbeknownst to Julian, one of the guests at Table 4, Lana Rivera, was a food journalist for New York Taster. She'd come to review his famed winter menu. But what she'd witnessed stirred something deeper. She scribbled notes not about the truffle foam, but about the homeless man with the haunted eyes. Back in his alley, Eli stared at the photo of his daughter. She was 5 when cancer took her. His wife had left soon after. The spiral had been quick. One missed rent, one fired job, one drink too many. But once upon a time, he'd been a rising chef at the Golden Fork. Inside the restaurant, Noah, the sous chef, paced nervously. He recognized Eli. Years ago, he was just a line cook, and Eli, then Chef Dawson, had mentored him. But when Eli lost his daughter, the world turned cold. Julian had fired him without a second thought. And now this? "It isn't right," Noah murmured. Late that night, Lana found Eli again. She offered him food, warmth, and something more. "Come with me," she said. "There's a cooking contest next week. Underground. Real chefs. No brands, no fame. Just heart." Eli hesitated. His hands trembled, but she saw something light up behind his eyes. The first time Eli touched a pan in years, he burned his hand, but muscle memory came back. Knife skills, flavor balance, instinct. He slept in Lana's garage, cooked with borrowed ingredients, and poured his soul into dishes that whispered memories of his daughter, her favorite stew, the birthday cake she never got. At the contest, chefs laughed when Eli entered, dressed in thrift store rags. He didn't look the part, but as his broth simmered, a hush fell. When the judges tasted his food, some cried. This is a story in a bowl," one whispered. Eli won. But more than that, he felt alive again. Word of the underground competition winner spread quietly among culinary circles. Lana posted a blind review of the ghost chef, describing flavors born of grief and hope. She never named Eli, but she didn't need to. The story began to move, like smoke through a crack in a kitchen door. Julian read the article during his morning espresso. The writing cut deep. A soul more refined than any Michelin star. Food that remembers. He scoffed, but his hand trembled. "Find out who this ghost chef is," he ordered his assistant. "Now!" His ego couldn't tolerate praise that wasn't his. That evening, Noah arrived at Lana's garage, holding a worn chef's coat. Eli opened the door, surprised. "You kept this?" Noah nodded. "I owe you, Chef Dawson, for everything. I'm ashamed I didn't speak up when Julian threw you out." Eli placed a hand on his shoulder. "You can now." With Noah's help, Eli began cooking small meals for shelters. Word spread fast. Someone was feeding the homeless with 5-star food. Photos of those meals, roasted pumpkin bisque, thyme-scented rolls, braised short ribs with garlic foam, began to surface online. One image showed a smiling child holding a plate. It went viral. Lana published a second piece. This time, she named the chef The Forgotten Flame, Eli Dawson's journey from Golden Fork to street corner to culinary resurrection. It hit a nerve. Food lovers demanded his comeback. TV shows called. Sponsorships offered deals. But Eli refused all. "I'm not for sale," he told Lana. Julian snapped. On live television, he challenged Eli to a charity cook-off, his ego disguising revenge as philanthropy. "Let's see if street dust can season a dish," he sneered. Eli considered declining, but then Lana whispered, "Do it for everyone who's ever been thrown out and told they were nothing." As the big event approached, Julian rehearsed like a general before war. He brought imported foie gras, 200-year-old wine, saffron flown in from Spain. Meanwhile, Eli used produce grown in community gardens, leftovers from bakeries, bones from butcher scraps. "Waste nothing," he said. "Every scar can flavor a dish." The stage was set in Central Park. Thousands attended. More watched online. The twist. Both chefs had to prepare meals for a group of homeless families. The camera zoomed in on Eli's hands, steady, focused. Julian's jaw clenched. "This is charity, not cuisine," he whispered. But something in his voice cracked. Julian's meal was immaculate, perfectly plated, but cold in spirit. Eli's was simple. Smoked corn chowder, hand-rolled bread. A berry tart that tasted like love. One child who hadn't spoken in days took a bite and whispered, "This reminds me of my mom." The judges fell silent. One wept. When the results came in, the crowd held its breath. Eli had won by a landslide, not just in flavor, but in heart. Julian stood frozen. People weren't cheering him anymore. A boy hugged Eli. The cameras caught every moment. Eli looked at Julian and said calmly, "Now you taste what I felt, being invisible." The morning after the cook-off, Eli sat down for an interview on national television. He spoke softly, humbly. "I lost my daughter and I lost myself, but cooking brought me back." When asked about Julian, Eli simply said, "We all serve something. I just stopped serving my pride." The clip went viral. At the Golden Fork, reservations were being canceled. Influencers called Julian tone-deaf. Former employees began speaking out. Stories of bullying, discrimination, and pride-driven cruelty leaked out. Chef Mercier once threw a plate at me for burning a crust. One chef shared anonymously. The restaurant star rating came under review. Julian received a call from the Maison de la Cuisine Française, the culinary institute where he trained. They informed him that his honorary award was being reevaluated in light of his recent behavior. His hands shook as he hung up. "You don't take stars from the sky," he muttered. But they already had. Eli was offered the chance to helm a new 5-star restaurant. Investors wanted to build the Second Table, a place that offered world-class cuisine and free meals for the needy each week. But Eli declined. "Not yet," he said. "There's a debt I still owe." Instead, he asked for something different. Eli returned not to fame, but to a forgotten neighborhood on the south side. There, in an abandoned church kitchen, he began rebuilding. Local teens helped paint. Elderly women brought spices. Volunteers showed up with pots and pans. They didn't have linen tablecloths, but they had soul. Eli named the place Grace. With mounting scandals and plummeting reviews, Julian faced the unthinkable. The Golden Forks board asked him to step down. He refused, so they fired him. For the first time in 20 years, Chef Mercier was no longer at the helm of the empire he had built on arrogance and fear. Julian wandered into a small cafe one night. Hooded, alone, he watched people eat with joy, something his food had never truly brought them. A waitress handed him a free coffee. "Rough night?" she asked kindly. He just nodded. "You look hungry." The words hit like a hammer. For the first time, he admitted it to himself. Weeks later, Julian showed up outside Grace, watching from across the street. Eli noticed but said nothing. The next day, Julian came back. This time, he walked inside. He stood awkwardly in front of the counter. "Do you need help?" Eli asked, wiping flour from his hands. "Aye." Julian hesitated. "Yes." Eli handed Julian an apron. No cameras, no press. Just two men in a kitchen. Julian chopped onions in silence. He peeled carrots, washed dishes. He watched Eli interact with the team, with grace, with empathy, with dignity. For the first time, Julian felt small in the best possible way. Eli asked Julian to cook one dish, something from his heart. Julian made a simple mushroom risotto. When they served it to a single mother and her son, the boy smiled and said, "This is the best thing I've ever had." Julian's eyes welled up. It wasn't about stars. It was about people. Word began to spread about Grace, not because of marketing, but because of impact. Families who couldn't afford dinner were served food prepared by Michelin-level chefs. Volunteers came from as far as Boston and Atlanta. "We heard something sacred is happening here," one young chef said. He wasn't wrong. One day, a check arrived and signed untraceable. It was for $500,000. A note was attached. Build longer tables, not higher walls. With the funds, Eli expanded Grace into a training center for formerly incarcerated individuals and displaced youth. It wasn't just a kitchen now. It was a movement. Julian kept coming back. Quietly, humbly. Every time he worked, cleaned, cooked, said little. One evening, Eli finally asked, "Why do you really keep coming?" Julian looked at him. "Because this is the first time I've ever cooked without trying to be better than someone else." The mayor of the city requested a meeting with Eli. "We'd like to give Grace a permanent facility, city-sponsored." Eli paused. "I'll accept on one condition," he said. "No red tape, and it must always be free to those who need it." The mayor agreed. A ribbon cutting was scheduled. With Julian gone, the Golden Fork was rebranded under a new celebrity chef. Reviews were mixed. "Technically flawless, but soulless," one critic wrote. Patrons murmured about the old days, but also about what Eli had built. In many ways, the Golden Fork had become a ghost of what it once crushed. Lana Rivera published her last article on the saga. From flame to grace, the redemption of a chef and the fall of a tyrant. The piece didn't just go viral. It was nominated for a Pulitzer. She closed the article with a quote from Eli: "You don't measure a man by how high he climbs, but by what he reaches for when he falls." A famous culinary institute in France extended an invitation to Eli to lecture on the ethics of hospitality. Eli declined. Instead, he nominated someone else, Julian. "He has something to say now," Eli said. "He just needed to lose everything to learn what it was." The institute accepted. Eli and his team launched Grace on Wheels, a fleet of mobile food trucks serving hot meals in low-income neighborhoods. Julian captained one of them. "I once served kings," he told a young boy as he handed him a bowl of lentil stew. "But this is the greatest honor of my life." Late one night, Eli sat alone in the kitchen, writing the final recipe in his daughter's old notebook. It was for a simple apple tart, the one she'd loved most. He closed the notebook gently, kissed the cover, and whispered, "We did it, baby girl. We really did." At the next banquet at Grace, a new volunteer showed up, a shy teenage boy whose family Eli had once fed in the shelter. "Can I help cook?" he asked. Eli smiled. "You already are." And there, among peeling onions and laughter, the once-forgotten chef stood not on a pedestal, but in purpose. One evening, Eli reserved a long table at Grace, but told no one why. The team helped prepare the meal, lighting candles, plating carefully. Then one by one, familiar faces entered. Lana, Noah, Julian, the mayor, shelter volunteers, and children from the community. It was a first silent table, a tradition Eli started to remind everyone that some moments speak without words. After dinner, Julian stood awkwardly before the group. "I never said thank you," he began. "I built a palace and filled it with pride. But Eli built a home with empty hands. I used to believe greatness was measured by stars. Now I know better. It's measured by how many people sit at your table." Eli received a letter in the mail, handwritten, tear-stained. It was from his ex-wife. She had seen the stories. She wrote, "You were always a better man than the world gave you credit for. Our daughter will be proud." Enclosed was a photo of the three of them, taken before everything fell apart. On the anniversary of his daughter's death, Eli lit a single candle in the kitchen before service. "Today we cook for her," he said softly. Every dish served that day included an ingredient she loved. People didn't know why the food felt so special that day, but they cried anyway. Grace was awarded a Global Humanitarian Culinary Award, something no five-star restaurant had ever received. Eli didn't attend the ceremony. Instead, he sent one of his teen apprentices. "They need to see the future," he said, "not the past." That apprentice, a former runaway, gave a speech that stunned the world. Eli quietly stepped away from daily cooking. His body was getting older, but he remained in the background, teaching, mentoring, smiling from the shadows. One night, he cooked one final meal just for the team. It was called Beginning Again. They wept while eating it. Some said it tasted like forgiveness. Years later, Grace continued to thrive, run by former apprentices. At every communal dinner, one chair was left empty, with a chef's hat hanging on its back. A note on the table read, "For the one who reminded us that hunger has more than one meaning." A documentary was made, titled "The Man Who Cooked from Rock Bottom." It told Eli's story from riches to rags to rising again. Schools used it to teach empathy. Chefs used it to teach humility. Parents used it to teach their children the value of perseverance and grace. Lana, now a best-selling author, visited Grace one evening with her daughter. She pointed to a tattoo on her wrist, a tiny fork entwined with a vine. "He didn't just change food," she told her daughter. "He changed how people see the ones they walk past." The story ends not with Eli's death, but with his absence. And yet, in every kitchen that serves without judgment, in every plate that tells a story, in every young cook who believes they're more than their scars, Eli lives on. Because once upon a time, a homeless man walked into a five-star restaurant and was thrown out. But he didn't stay out. He built his own table. And then he invited the whole world to sit.